Blake Lively is challenging Justin Baldoni to get their receipts, bringing in AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. Is this going to actually happen? And what happened to all those concrete receipts you already had? We got attorney Greg Dahl here, and we're going to break it all down. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. We are live. I'm here with It's Kim in the background, and so honored to have Greg Dahl here, attorney at law. Welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Good. I was just saying, it was great to meet you, and I've been a big fan of your podcast since the Depp Heard days, so it's really an honor to be on here.
Thank you for the kind words. We found Greg, we talked a little bit before in the live, but we found him through, I think it was Hollywood Reporter. You had some really good insight on this case as they were looking for lawyer advice. Melcher is here. We love Melcher, but he's busy today. We'll get him back, but I don't want him to think we're cheating on him. But we know the audience loves it, but honor to have you here as well. And thank you for stepping in. We got to get you both in at a certain point. But I'm excited to have you here because you do focus on entertainment law, a lot of stuff, right? Is your background. So this is stuff that you've addressed. You had to deal with celebrities, with clients, with agencies, all this stuff. This is all in your wheelhouse, correct?
Yeah, so I've been practicing entertainment litigation since about 1997, and first on the studio side, and then with talent agencies, and then with talent and so forth. So it's been an area of expertise for the last almost 28 years now.
So I want to talk about this main issue, which is the new issue about the receipts. There's a lot to break down, but as I asked you before, just for people in the recap and people who are just joining us, you separated it. There's a PR battle and a legal battle. I think it sounds like you agreed Justin's winning the PR battle, but legally, is there a front runner?
You know, it's at this point in time, it's too early to tell who's the legal front runner. I've long sort of held the view on this case that it's a PR battle disguised as a lawsuit. So in that sense, who's ever winning the PR war is winning the lawsuit, if that makes sense. So I think Baldoni's got a big lead right now in terms of the PR, and he's doing a really good job of, he's shifted the narrative and he's actually shown receipts, which people are latching onto and say, look, they've got good, solid data backing what he says, and all does not appear as lively as presented it to be, and that sort of thing. So I think he's ahead in the PR campaign. Is in the terms of legal action, it's really too early to tell because they just got past the initial status conference. They're going to go into a few months of aggressive discovery, and then I think you're going to start to see things leak about what they learn in discovery, and you're going to get a feel whether there's any ticking time bombs out there, whether there's any big issues that we haven't seen yet. But what's rare about this case, is I think that we have seen way more evidence in these complaints because it's been a PR feud. We've seen way more evidence than we would typically see in a lawsuit. You don't typically get 200+ page complaints in a lawsuit.
Do you think that's like the new norm now? Do you think that's going to become what most celebrities and people want now or expect of like, hey, we got to put out in these lawsuits, there's too many people online, that's the new media? Or do you think people are going to learn from this? Wow, this really blew up in the celebrities' faces. What do you think the long-term effects of all of that evidence in the lawsuits will be?
Yeah, I think you're going to see this become the new norm because it's been so effective, right? If you think like in the Depp v. Heard, you have to wait until the trial happens years after the complaint before you tell the whole story, and everybody waits. And a lot of people probably drop off in the meantime. But now I think people are seeing a trend where you say, look, you've got a dispute that's out there. People are talking about it. People are interested in it. And you have a chance while their interest is piqued and you've got a big audience to tell the entire story that you would tell at trial. And I think what Friedman did was excellent because he got it all out there. Now, I think Lively got it out there before him, and he had responding to it. So they're both doing the same PR, and it's going to be a tug of war on public opinion. But these are two people who are really trying to win that PR battle. And I think you're going to see this become the new norm for future entertainment cases.
Well, let's get into this specific update today because this is interesting, and I want to get your thoughts because I know you had some.
Sure.
What's fascinating to me about this request now that Blake Lively's out there challenging the receipts and demanding that all the cell carriers bring in all this stuff kind of goes against what she previously did from the PR battle, which was, we got concrete evidence. This isn't he said, she said, it's clear retaliation, yada, yada, yada. And now as I read this sort of request and subpoena, it's like she clearly didn't have the evidence. She clearly needs more. And to me, that's while as confident as she's trying to play it, to me, this just plays like, wow, you really don't have anything. And one of the biggest questions that we've had, and I know, and I'm curious, like, is there a smoking gun that they're holding on to? Is this all part of it? And they're just trying to gather this maybe? to me, to quote, I think it's Brian Friedman even said it. This is just a fishing expedition, is what he's the quote. I had it. I just lost it. But he's been quoted as saying, "Yeah, this is all nonsense. They clearly don't have anything to go." What is your, before we get into the actual, can they do this?
Yeah.
Do you think this was a wise move, or do you think this is telling as to whether she actually has any smoking guns or evidence at all?
Yeah, you raised some excellent points. I think it was the right move in any lawsuit, because you want to use that discovery period, and this discovery period is going to be truncated. I think it's only going to go in 2025. Typically, discovery can go on for years in a lot of cases. So it's going to go on for 2025. I think you want to, when you have this opportunity, you want to find every document that is out there that could potentially help your client. So I'm sure Friedman's going to do the same thing on his side. And I think what we're going to see is that they're going to subpoena these phone companies and service providers, and they're not going to get the content of communications between the parties, because that's going to fall under this called the Stored Communications Act. But what they're going to get is they're going to see, wow, this person made 25 calls to this person on June blank. And like, what the hell were they talking about at that time period of time, right? So you're going to start, and then you're going to say, it's interesting because I asked you to produce all of your text messages from June blank, and you didn't give me anything, but yet you gave 25 parent calls of this person. So then you have another angle where you say to the judge, hey, look, I don't think they're being forthcoming on what they're giving us in discovery. We need you to take more extreme measures. And the extreme measures could be, we need you to get a copy of we need to get their actual physical phone. I know they got a phone from one of the publicists in this case, but we need to get Baldoni's phone, or we need to get Lively's phone, and we need to have a third party go through and examine that and see what we can find in messages that are either there or have been deleted. And that third party will typically then go through and remove the ones that are clearly privileged or clearly irrelevant, and then you'll start to get some more documents. So back to your original question, I think you're going to see this on both sides. I think it always turns into a fishing expedition. They always make motions to say it's a fishing expedition, and then the judge gets to decide how to narrow it.
But they're not actually going to get the full text exchanges, like and everything. They're going to get more data around it. So the lawyers will be able to stop them from, like, because even it was always shocking to me in the Depp case, somehow his whole phone thing leaked, which was shocking. And then Amber never was supposed to give hers and then never did. Yeah. It doesn't seem like texts actually ever really fully come out in a lot of these cases. So that's very abnormal to actually get the full exchanges.
Yeah, it's very, look, here's what I would say. If you are going for a case between two individual parties, my suspicion is you almost never see their text messages, right? Because unless one of them is just exceedingly above board, honest and whatnot, almost everybody's inclination before a lawsuit is they get rid of all the text that they don't want anybody to see, right? And you're left with what's left in a lawsuit. When you get in with larger companies, you typically get it because there's so many duties that they have that they can be held criminally liable if they're destroying evidence, things like that. But I think whatever is on Lively's phone, whatever's on Baldoni's phone, each side is going to make a very, very strong push to get that information. And I think the first step of getting that, because you can't walk into court and say, I want his phone so I can have it forensically examined. The first step is to say, I want all of this text. And then you say, well, this is interesting. The texts don't line up between what we know from the phone company and what we have seen on his production. We need to have a forensic examination, and then the forensic examination finds out what else is out there, because they can go back and reconstruct sometimes and find out what you deleted. And then you have a whole new set of problems that you have to deal with if you're dealing with destruction of evidence.
Well, because this is fascinating, because Blake has a phone. Blake literally, like, a Stephanie Jones stole. I say stole, but it feels questionably forced. Jernnifer Abel was at his phone during. I assume you followed enough of the case to know, like, the head publicist stole the other one because she thought there were trade secrets, which, again, questionable whether that was legal or allowed. Abel says she just felt like, I didn't know what to do, and she was threatened, and there was security at the door, and so she handed over the phone. And in doing so, they have the phone records between Jessica and between them. So it's just weird to me that now they're like, Justin's response is, well, here's the full exchange that you edited, which they clearly did. And then their response is, well, no, we need to see all of it. But they have it all, and they introduced the text in the first place. So does any of that matter? Can any of that affect it? Where can Justin's team be like, yo, they took this phone wrongfully, and they were able to go through cherry pick, and that's what caused all this damage by taking these out of context? we demand to really scroll through and see all of Blake's messages to Ryan to see if they were in cahoots to destroy Justin. Is there a version where that can happen due to what Blake did?
My best guess, and I don't have facts to know this for certain. My best guess is that Jones took the phone of the people if they worked for her, arguing that that was a worked phone and work property. So if she was paying for the phone service, if she paid for the phone, if it was predominantly used for work and she got it, that's probably legitimate employer action to go ahead and get that phone. Although it's arguable if she had resisted and said, no, screw you, I'm not going to get my phone, that would be a long court fight. And maybe she would get it and maybe she wouldn't, or maybe she would get part of it and maybe she wouldn't. But she didn't do that. She turned it over. I don't think that evidence is going to get excluded on that basis. But, you know, going back to your original point about this sort of how's this shaping up, when one party comes forward and says to this generation, I'm going to offer you transparency, where the other side has redacted messages or truncated messages or whatever it be, here's the full message, that side is always going to get ahead in the PR campaign because people want transparency. They want to know they're not being misled. And so I think that was a very wise move to publish the full text. And I think that's probably why you see support really strongly growing for Baldoni in this particular case.
So, okay, interesting. And so realistically, you think this is just sort of a standard attempt to do discovery, and you suspect they're going to do it back as well. Anything else telling from this, or anything else we should be prepared for, and what's going to actually happen here?
No, it's just, I think you're right. I think it's par for the course, but I think, you're dealing with lawyers on the other side, or on Baldoni's side, who are extremely savvy. I've known Brian for 20 years. This is not going to go unresponded to. You know what I mean? So you can expect a vigorous counter reaction to this, and you can expect, look at the parties who potentially have texts and emails that may be really embarrassing to other people. And, you have the whole Taylor Swift thing, you have her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and whatever. There's going to be a lot of issues related to Ryan Reynolds because there's various privileges called like spousal communication privileges, the marital confidences privileges. They're a complex web of law that protects basically comments that you make to your spouse and your spouse makes to you, because it's analogous to conversations with your therapist. The law wants you to be able to freely communicate with your spouse without that spouse later testifying against you about what you said, right? That's going to be an interesting web because Reynolds now and Lively are both named as defendants. And some of the information that's relevant to the lawsuit is going to be communications between them. So you're going to see a complicated web. But what is not going to be complicated is anything that they said in front of Taylor Swift, or anything that Lively said to Swift, or anything that Lively said to other people in the industry or other people at WME. There's no privilege, none. And those things are going to be embarrassing.
The text to be between Blake and Taylor, if they are talking crap about Justin, that could be admissible.
100%. And those are the communications where I think you're going to see Friedman go for the jugular, because those are not embarrassing only to Live. They're going to be embarrassing to other people who care about their reputation. And I think that's where you're going to see some leaks that are going to come out of this discovery process that are going to be mind-blowing, because those texts are going to start to come to the fore.
That's interesting, because they talked about trying to make sure there was protection to all the celebrities involved in the last hearing. Can they put that in place? Can they say, listen, Taylor Swift isn't involved and her text should be excluded? Or is that kind of impossible since she's now a public figure? And if she's involved, can that stuff leak?
It's basically impossible to protect Taylor Swift, because now she's part of the allegations of the complaint. She's part of the allegations that they tried to pressure him to rewrite the scene or whatever it was. And so she's in. There's going to be communication. Now, they're going to try to dramatically limit the scope of those, because they're going to say, when they're discussing some other private issue unrelated to this lawsuit, that doesn't come in. And I think the judge will agree with that. But the definition is going to be broad, which is, it's not just, is it relevant, but is it reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, which is even broader than relevance, which means if you learn something in those texts that might ultimately lead you to depose somebody else and get relevant evidence for trial, that comes in too. So I think they're going to see a lot about that. Now, going back to your original point, what about the protections they're putting in place? So what happens typically at the beginning of a lawsuit is the parties enter into what's called a confidentiality order or a protective order. And that basically says anything we learn in this lawsuit can't be disseminated to third parties. you got to keep it confidential and relegate it to this particular proceeding. So I think they're going to, if they haven't done so already, they're going to sign a confidentiality order that's going to stop them from sending these documents out. But as you and I both know, everything gets leaked. Not everything, but a lot of stuff gets leaked.
Wow. Here, what you mentioned, Friedman. I wanted to make sure and Kim's coming back in as well. I wanted to make sure we got Friedman's quote fully. This is, so they were, Blake's team, subpoenas are out, went out to the entities below. Wallace will now receive all the receipts that unsurprisingly are nowhere to be found on Mr. Friedman's website. And like Miss Lively, those receipts will have their day in court. Now, before even Friedman responds, I find that quote just so ridiculous. Blake Lively's like taunting them. She's like, basically was like, oh, stop. They're putting a lot, stop the website. And then they didn't really make the website. They just put some legal docs. And now she has the audacity to be like, unsurprisingly, it's nowhere to be found. It's like she wants to have her cake and eat it too. Isn't that? And a judge, meanwhile, has told them to be silent. Is this helping her case at all?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised by that quote after they just had a hearing complaining about trying to influence the jury out in New York and trying to silence Brian Friedman. I mean, it seems bizarre to me that they would go out and make that statement now. And I think Friedman's response to that, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to read that first.
Here it is. What is extraordinary is that is what lively parties are seeking. Brian Friedman said they're asking for every single call, text, data log, even real-time location information for the past 2.5 years, regardless of the sender, recipient, or subject matter. This massive phishing expedition demonstrates that they are desperately seeking any factual basis for their provably false claims. They will find none. I mean, pretty good response, no?
Yeah, it's a great response. And I was going to say, if you look at this, if they really were indiscriminate and they wanted all communications with everybody you've ever talked to and everything you related to your career and stuff, it's going to get shot down by the court. It's going to get chopped up. It's not going to go through in that current form. So if that's truly the scope and there's no hyperbole there, I mean, that's just a ridiculous discovery request. And it's just going to lead to motion practice. But it is what it is, and that's what lawyers unfortunately do, and make things difficult.
Kim, I wanted to bring you in the conversation. We have him here for another few more, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. Anything you want to ask Mr. Greg Dahl?
I actually would love to ask another question regarding Blake Lively and her team and the way this has gone. There was an interesting letter that was filed by Justin, or the Wayfair Party's team, that was alleging that Blake apparently did not want to be deposed by Brian Friedman. Is there ever a situation in which you get to choose the lawyer who deposes you? Like, what is the grounds for this? Because everything I've heard, it's ridiculous, but I'm interested to hear an expert perspective because I found that to be quite baffling.
Yeah.
Is there any version where you can request?
Oh, go, sorry.
Well, yeah,
Sorry,
is there any
Andy?
version where you can request who deposes you?
Yeah. I mean, Kim, it's a great question. In 28 years, I have never seen this request.
Thank you. Okay.
I don't think anybody would seriously entertain it. Now, if you could show that the lawyer violated some code of conduct or violated the judge's order, you could probably take some action to not have that lawyer be deposing you, but the action would probably be a lot broader, which is that he shouldn't be a lawyer in the case because he's violated your orders, he's violated his ethics. Don't let him, and especially in Friedman's position, I mean, I think part of the reason they filed in New York as opposed to California is because they were trying to not have Brian involved. But I think if that's the case, I mean, one of the things, when you come into New York and you're a California lawyer, you get admitted pro hoc vice, which means for this case. And there's a whole different set of standards on you to comply with the civil guidelines and the ethical guidelines of that particular state. So the judge can always say at some point in time, like, look, I don't think Mr. Friedman should go and be the lawyer anymore if he finds that there was some sort of egregious conduct. But we ain't there, and you just don't get to pick your counsel who's going to depose you. It would be a great world for witnesses if you could.
Yeah. It's like, it was always my impression you got to choose, your own lawyer because you're footing the bill for that, or, one is being appointed for you. But I mean, I don't think you get to pick the other side, but that was just something I found to be quite fascinating when that happened.
Completely, Kim. That's a good point.
Okay.
Oh man, a star was born on this show. Greg was fantastic as a guest. The audience loved him. We're definitely gonna have him back, but we actually asked him a lot more. So if you want to see the full show, become a member over on our Patreon. That's right. That's where all our replays are. You can support the channel. Also, you'll be supporting our upcoming Blake Lively, Justin documentary that we're working on. All our paid members on Patreon are going to get first access to that project. And that's how we're going to get it done, through your support. So please support us over there. You can check out the replay later today. It'll be there, or at least first thing tomorrow, with all of our interview with Greg and more, along with all the craziness with Kim. That was a fun show, was it not?
It was fun. It was fun.
It was a good
Meow,
one.
meow, meow, meow. It was a good time.
We played some good memes. If you haven't already, at least make sure you subscribe, hit the bell for all alerts so you get notified of when videos are there. When you do, what do? You hit that like. Hit the like before you leave a comment, and stay tuned. We got a lot more coverage coming your way. Nerd Report is next. If you're watching live, we'll send you over there. Go send Lewis our love. Thanks for watching, everybody. You're the best.